The previous segment was about separating the subject through tonal differences. This next section is more about accent lighting, not only as a separator, but as something to add interest. Adding edge, accent, separation, or rim light to the subject's face or body spices up what would be otherwise kind of an ordinary lighting situation. This isn't bad, it's just that the lighting is a little boring. But we just moved her back a little bit, and that allowed the existing light behind her to accent her blonde hair. And I think this adds more impact to the image. Usually outside we'll have the benefit of finding a large open sky for a soft accent light. This is a pullback, well, half of one, of where it was done to show that there was a large sky behind him to our left.
If you see shine on leaves like this, that tells you that you'll have a nice soft separation light on the edge of your subject.
You may have noticed that on the previous image the accent light wasn't real strong. It can be, but in that case it wasn't. Same here, but that's good for blondes because their hair can only take a little light before it loses detail. This is where I photographed her. And zooming in on those leaves, we can see the highlighting that's going on. I'll share one more example with a before and after result. This is the area where we'll be working. We have a good source of accent light on our left, and I added the softbox for main light on our right. This shows the accent lighting where she'll be standing. And with all of that, we get a clean image with good separation. But if some branches hide that accent lighting, her hair kind of gets lost in all that busyness. As with any lighting, we need to be concerned with its direction, size, and color. This is an example of proper accent lighting. It needs to be high enough and a little to the side so that the whole height of the face is lit. And here's where that last image was done. I used a black reflector for the background. That black square to the upper left is just there to block flare into the camera from that strong outside light. It didn't block any light from the subject. Okay, and here's what happens if the light is too far to the side. It hits his nose. Outside light can be warm, cool, or green, depending on what it's reflecting. This was the result of sunlight on green grass coming through the window. I fixed it by shifting the hue of that green cast on his cheek to more of a pink. Here's a screen capture of how I used the eyedropper to pick the color of his green cheek. Then I moved the hue slider away from the green. I also could have painted out the green with a brush. I'll briefly explain the differences between the various brush modes that you can use for this method. Painting with a muted pink over the image in the normal mode paints that color on top of everything. Painting in the color mode only paints color over densities that will accept color. Black is 000 in RGB, so it won't show any color because black is black. The same with white. You can't change white. It's 255, 255, 255. But you can change gray to a color. Painting in hue shifts the hue of the underlying value. If it has no existing hue, it'll remain colorless. But if the underlying value has a high saturation, then the painted color will show a saturated value.
Placing a background in the center of the garage door will permit the subject to be surrounded by accent light. This close-up shows the intriguing edge light surrounding the subject that helps to separate him from a similar colored background. Backlighting just begs for lens fog. Lens fog. Real fog can be a great tool, but lens fog is an entirely different matter, and it's not something we want when it isn't foggy.
This is what we usually want: good saturation and color. I block the strong sunlight from striking my lens. But this is what can happen if we don't block that backlight from hitting our lens, or especially any filter of any type.
Outside, usually the main source of light that can cause lens fog is the sky. So that's taken care of pretty easily by using a gobo on a light stand.
And because we blocked that bright source of light just out of the frame, there's no trace of fog in this image.
A fuzzy flector below and to my right bounced light back to his face from the window behind him. In this case, the flare from that window added to the dusty feeling. This is the image without the flare. I blocked the flare from the window with my hand. As you can see, there's more contrast, but I prefer the shot with the flare. I like windows behind the subject because the edge light can come through it. If the subject is far back in that room or garage, it's fine. But if the subject is closer to the front open garage door, that edge light won't be strong enough. So we need to add to it. So I went behind the garage and placed the reflector in the sun to shine sunlight inside the garage. Without that backlight, she wasn't set off from the background enough. But with the edge light, the image has a stronger look.